Hey there, folks. It is Cameraman Wes here from the Outdoor Report. This is the brand new Outdoor Report podcast hosted by me, Wes Gall. And I already messed it up. This is episode number 1, and you might call me a fool right out the bat here, which rightfully so. So I figured you might as well start a podcast as low as you can get, because there's actually kind of, I don't know for others, but for me, there's nerves going into making a podcast, putting yourself out there, coming up with a structure that you think people are going to like. And I've been pondering it for the last couple of years. There's some different podcasts I listen to, a few of those being the Wired to Hunt podcast with Mark Kenyon. You've got the Meat Eater podcast with Steven Ranella. You've got the Hunt Talk Unfiltered with Randy Newberg. He's a Minnesota boy. So those are a couple that I've listened to and have kind of inspired me to want to create a podcast of some sort. And there's, some nerves of putting yourself out there, and I already messed it up. So I like it. I feel horrible. I feel stupid. But I didn't push record on the very first episode of our podcast with Jeremy Curran. I halfway through to about the 20-minute mark, this app that I'm trying to use and figure out, I didn't push the right button halfway through. But the good part is that we did get Jeremy getting right into the nitty-gritty of his hunt. So I figured it out halfway through. So we've got something, and that's Eric Osberg has told us that done is better than perfect. So we're just going to ship this sucker out and then move on to the next episode and not make that mistake again. So that's where we're going to head with that. But leading up to where I figured out where my mistake was and finally hit record, Jeremy filled us in on why he got out moose hunting, and the way he came around to it was his dad was friends with a pastor up in Alaska, and I believe that the pastor had come to Minnesota, and they've kind of done some stuff together, and so that he offered to bring him up there to Alaska. I think he said it's near Fairbanks, and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong on Facebook. And that's the area that they've been hunting, and they've been hunting on gold mine claims. So it sounds like they've got property. They're fortunate that they had property that they're able to hunt where they're not competing with public hunters. But there is a lot of public ground around, and it sounds like that's pretty good as well. So they're up in that area. The reason they've been going is, well, because of his dad, but his dad's always wanted to take a moose with a bow. And that's been his challenge that he's been chasing for the last couple of years and hasn't quite conquered it yet. They've had some close calls. They're staying out in kind of some remote cabins with no electricity is kind of what they're staying out of. And going into this year, they got back up there. They fly in, and apparently his dad had a close call at the bat, but didn't have an opportunity. And Jeremy was trying to get him with the bow, but when it came down to it, they couldn't get close enough, and he finally ended up switching over to gun. So trying to fill in, I did a horrible job of filling in of what all took place leading up to this 20 minutes. So I apologize, Jeremy, and the audience. But where we jump in here, Jeremy is just getting into the action of his spectacular encounter with this unbelievable moose. And you can check out, if you're listening right now, you can go to the Outdoor Report page. We do have a video of this podcast, and it has some of Jeremy's pictures of that hunt, so you can kind of see what he was witnessing on his end. But we'll jump in here. I promise we will make the podcast better. We can only go up from here. So that's where we're going to end. We'll jump into where Jeremy starts here, and then we'll take it from there.
An opportunity by the end of the week to shoot one too. So the next morning we go out, and that same bull comes out where we last seen him, where he disappeared at the very end of the meadow. And about 5 or 10 minutes of calling at him, and he doesn't move an inch. He just kind of puts his antlers down on the grass and just kind of rubs him in the mud and stuff, and he's just thrashing a little bit. Mark goes, Jeremy, just take the rifle and go get him. I said, okay. I grabbed it, and I had to truck about 300 yards. I've never shot this rifle. I've actually never shot anything with a rifle. I've always just bow hunted in this area in Minnesota. Is shotgun for deer, so I've always only shotgun hunted. So I trucked. It took me about 10 minutes to get down to about 230 yards, 240 yards. And I heard Mark cow call. And when I heard him cow call, I knew that the moose was likely on the move because he said he would call to keep its interest. And I hadn't heard him call that whole time I was walking. So I just take off running to the edge of that meadow. And I see the bull, and he's about 10 yards from the woods, going right at the woods on the other side. So I quick run to a tree. You try and find something with a good rest. After you've been running for 10 minutes through a woods, you're breathing pretty heavy, and this huge moose, add to the adrenaline. But I couldn't find a tree to use. So I ran back to that open area where I could see him because I'm still in the woods, about 30, 40 yards in the woods. And he turns broadside, so I quick pull up, and I shoot, took a deep breath, and I missed, just a clean miss. And he turns and kind of freezes, and all I can see is his butt. So I'm thinking, oh, great, I'm not going to get another shot. And so I bolt action, I load another shell, come back up, and he turns at the last second that he's by the woods and gives me a slight quarter, almost broadside again shot. And I shoot again, and I miss where I'm aiming again, but fortunately I hit the neck perfect, and he just fell. I didn't know that I hit him. It had been raining all day. The hair is full of water, so when I hit him, it blew up like I hit water. So I thought I shot high and hit something. And so I come down. He fell out of the scope so fast. I came down. I'm looking. I was like, no way, I missed him. He's gone. And so I go walking out through the meadow. I had marked the spot where I thought he was, and I get to it, and I'm looking, and I don't see him. So now there's a little bit of panic starting to set in, like, did I really miss him?
Right.
I was like, there's no way, you're sitting there, and I'm looking, and so I start looking for blood, and I turn around, and I must have walked right past him by like 10 yards, because I turn around, he's right behind me. And you see the antlers sticking way up out, and it's just a huge relief. Heart was pounding. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's something I'll never do again, unless I'm lucky, like Gordon said, that, people that moose hunt every day, this is a moose of a lifetime.
Wow.
So it felt pretty sad. I didn't realize what I had. I knew it was big, but when he came down, like, I've been part of over 200 moose kills, and this might be the biggest I've ever seen. I was like, wow.
Yeah, when you look at it in the pictures, it's a moose that no doubt you just look at and it's glorious. It's just amazing the size and the span and the massiveness that you can tell from the picture, let alone if you're actually not there in person, what that is magnitude to.
Definitely fortunate. When I was, like I said earlier, that was I think the fifth bull shot in that meadow. So when I was going through that woods, I had the rifle, the sling on my shoulder, and I came over a big deadfall tree, and as I got over it, there was like a big hole in the ground, just kind of worn, just a big dirt circle. And in that circle, there was just a bone pile from the bears. A bear had been dragging carcasses to that spot. I was like, oh my goodness. So that gun just come right off the shoulder. And I kept my finger on that safety the whole time I was going through that woods. Definitely something you don't think about, but
what bears are you dealing with there?
There's grizzly and there's black bears both. So
okay.
Not likely something's going to happen, but you always got to respect the bear. That's for sure.
You get a kick out of, so I was just listening today to the meat eater Steven Rinella. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have.
They were on a elk hunt on Askenak Island, which is out by where you guys are hunting up. Was it by somewhere out in Alaska? We're kind of close where you guys must be. I'll have to take a look at a map for precise. But they were attacked, and he had a podcast today I was listening to, and he leaves it at the cliffhanger of when the bear comes out. and then you have to tune in next week, so that kind of stinks. But you get a kick out of it just because you could probably relate to it very well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When we were quartering the moose out, we actually had a bear growling and hissing kind of close to us in the thick brush area. We could hear him pretty good. And, Gordon goes, "That's just a small black bear." He goes, "If it was a grizzly, it had already been here to try to take the kill from us." And you're like, "What? Let's get a rifle a little bit closer." There wasn't one within 20 feet of us.
Sure.
I'm thinking, really?
What, on your end, what did you have to go through? So you got the moose down, and now starts the process of trying to cut them up and get them out. Did you have to hike them out, or were you guys fortunate to try to drive up to it?
We were fortunate that the six-wheelers were able to get to where we were. So it was, it still takes, I shot it at 10:30 in the morning, and I caped it, and then, you can't just move a 1,500-pound animal either. I shot it. We're kind of in some water area, so we roll out a tarp, and we quarter the whole thing. We get all the meat off the ribs and, the back straps and the loins. They actually have a front loin and a tenderloin. There's actually two spots where there's loins on the moose. You get all the neck meat, you get all that stuff out, and I think we had 6 or 7 Alaskan game bags full of meat. By the time we were done, I think it weighed like 700 pounds of meat.
But how much? What do you mainly get made into on your end?
He asked me, "What do you want?" I was giving half of it away, and then to the guys that were with us, and then maybe a quarter of it to Teen Challenge up there, and then I'm gonna take a quarter of it, which is still like 150 pounds of meat, which is a lot, He goes, "I'll just get you the choice steaks and the roasts and some hamburger." So that's what I'm getting. That's kind of all they do. Is they do a lot of roasts, especially up there in Alaska. The people up there seem to really like moose roasts.
What do you do to get it all back? Do you guys take it, or they ship it to you?
It's got to be shipped. So
okay.
Still working on that process. I got the cape at a taxidermist up there, and they're doing some prep work to it, and then when they're done, Gordon, the guy that we hunted with, is gonna ship the cape, the meat, and the antlers to us, and then I'll take it to my taxidermist from there.
Sure.
But it is something you really got to look into beforehand, because once you shoot it, it's like, well, now what, And now that I've been through it and I've talked to people that have been through it, you really kind of got to have a game plan set in place, whether it's through a trucking company or Delta will ship them, which is how we were going to. But then we found somebody that can get it in their trucking company, and we filled out all the paperwork so that they can get across customs and everything. So it's going to end up, I think, being come back on a semi.
Okay. What do you get to do on I know that with the CWD being a big thing, do you have to do anything with transporting it back in or have anything on that end of it?
Yep. Well, I think with Minnesota in general, it doesn't matter if you shoot in South Dakota or where, as far as the deer head goes, you have to cape the whole thing. The brains, all that has to be cleaned out if you bring the skull back. You have to basically clean everything out of the skull. So, like for me, I'm not bringing the skull back. I caped it. I YouTubed what I needed to do last year when I took some people deer hunting in Iowa. I YouTubed what I needed to do as far as caping a deer in case they shot one because of the new laws Minnesota has. So I remembered that from last year when I was up there on that moose, and I just kind of caped it how it said to do the deer. Pretty much the same thing. You got to work around the antlers, work around the eyes, the nose and the lips, all that.
Okay.
So it's something to, if you're thinking you're gonna get something mounted and bring it back, it's something you kind of need to know or look into, anyways. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of special stipulations now to check into.
Yep.
That particular hunt, or like the hunt you've been doing there, like on a scale of 1 to 10, the difficulty of it, or for somebody looking into trying to get into hunting? Is that a good place to start? Is there other recommendations that you have if someone's looking to try to get into a moose hunt somewhere?
I think it's a good place to start. Even like this, obviously I have a dream contact. Got somebody who's got an airplane, won't take a dime from us, which he can't because he doesn't have his commercial pilot's license. Legally, he can't take money from us. Flies us in, knows how to moose hunt, takes us. There's no guide fees. So all that part is just kind of a dream setup for us. Sure. But, like in my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, I'd like to maybe bring, my wife on a trip at some point, or, some kids or something that I grew up taking hunting out here, around home when they grow up, and, stuff like that. So I've started looking into public land hunts up there, and it seems like people do okay doing that. A lot of it seems to be floating rivers.
Okay.
And using rifles obviously is going to be a lot easier than the bow.
Sure. So floating down a river and hunting from there, trying to spot them.
Yep, trying to spot them or setting up a camp, one or the other. There's so many restrictions that you really gotta. There's areas where there's less restrictions on what you can legally shoot. And having the 50-inch. There's no grace either. You shoot one that's 49, they're taking everything from you. So, I would kind of suggest hunting an area if you just want to shoot a moose where the restrictions on the size of the antler there isn't restrictions. I think there's actually some areas where there isn't some. You can just shoot any bull.
Right. You can pick any out. You don't have to be so concerned, especially if you're a new time hunter, of trying to figure out what's 50 inches.
Right. It's not easy. That's for sure. I was even worried on mine at 71 inches. I wanted to make sure it had a 3-point brow tine because I know for sure it's 50.
71 inches. Nuts.
Yeah, almost 6 feet.
Well, so now you get that checked off the bucket list. So now what replaced that?
I really want to shoot an elk. That's probably the next thing on the list.
Have you gone for them before?
Last year, me and Morgan went actually on our honeymoon. Morgan bought a moose elk tag, and she, middle of the summer, goes, I bought an elk tag, and we're going to Montana for our honeymoon. And who's going to argue with that, right?
Music to your ears.
Yeah. So we went, and it was new. We did see a lot of elk, and probably should have had a shot at one, I should say, the first day. We had a 6x6 when we walked down, and we called, and I knew somebody out in that area who met us for that first night and took us into one of the block units, kind of public land, private land open to sportsmen to hunt. You got to sign in on them. So we signed in, and we went in there, and he called, and we weren't even there 30 seconds. He goes, I think they already went through. Nothing replied. I think they already went through the meadow. So we start walking up the hill, and I turn around, and we'd walked about 50 yards, and I turn around, and 20 yards from where we were last standing stood a 6x6. And it's just like, oh, man. So we were close.
What, now with your, you mentioned that your dad was the one that really wanted to get one with a bow.
Yep.
Has he gotten one?
No, he hasn't. And he could have shot one this year, but he wouldn't. They had one at 90 yards for about 10 minutes that Gordon said was 50. I think he said it was 53. And he's pretty good at calling out how big they are. And it had a 3-point brow. So, but my dad won't put the bow down. It's his dream to get one with the bow, and he's going to stick to it.
So now will you be going back out there to try to get that done again with him?
Yep, he told us that we're welcome back again next year. So,
nice. So he can still try to conquer that.
Yep, and I think he will. The opportunities he's had with non-legal bulls there's a lot of them. And he probably saw 10 bulls in the week we were up there.
What you said that one was at 90. What's his comfortable shooting range that he would take one at?
He was sighted in out to 70, but I don't know how well. We've never shot a moose with a bow. I don't know how well he was shooting 100 grain, so I don't think that that's a lethal shot at that distance with that arrow.
Yep.
So I would say 40 yards was kind of what he was saying. He wanted at least 40 yards if he could. But
Sure.
I think he could have took a 50-yard shot, but the rib bones are so big. I just don't think you're gonna do anything if you hit a rib bone.
When you're aiming on a moose, are you aiming similar to like a whitetail? Are the
Yep.
organs kind of placed similar?
Yep. You're trying to get both lungs.
So you're shooting right behind the shoulder again.
Yep. In which you got more room behind the shoulder. You know, you can go quite a ways back from the shoulder because their lungs are a lot bigger.
I'm just looking at your pictures here that you sent over on the terrain wise. Are you guys up in the mountains? Are you down valleys?
We're right kind of at the foothills of them. On a clear day, we see Denali really, really clear, or Mount McKinley, depending on what you know about McKinley and Denali. So I mean, it's beautiful. It's really a kind of breathtaking scenery. It's just you don't get to see it very often because it's always foggy. You know, fog comes in every day.
Fog quite a bit.
You know. Yep.
Does that deter the hunting?
Yep. Actually, the first day we were there, when that one come in, like an hour or two into our first morning, Gordon had said that he's never called one in the rain. And 2 hours later, it's still raining, and one came in. And then mine, I shot when it was raining. So,
wow.
I guess it was our year.
So out of 200 that he's witnessed or been with, it's very seldom that they come out in the rain.
Yep. And most of his success is between 9 and 11. He does not like to shoot them in the evening, is what we've learned. Actually, because of the bears. The second year.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the second year we went, you know, me and Dad were thinking, gosh, he always goes in. You know, maybe we should go in. And we set up a trail camera, and we went in. And 15 minutes after we left, one I would say was as big, if not bigger, than the one I shot. Was in front of the camera 15 minutes after we hung it. But me and my dad, you know, we were at the long spot from the cabin. You know, it's at least an hour drive with the 6-wheelers, and the two of us would have been out there till 2 or 3 in the morning, quartering that thing for sure. So I don't know if it probably was a good thing we weren't out there.
A good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you listen to that podcast I was mentioned too about with Steven on their recent hunt, they did the same thing. He shot his too late, and then they were packing out when it was nighttime, and that's kind of where the story all starts. But yeah, it's funny to see the similar things there.
Last year, my dad still went with my brother. So my brother went, and because I was on my honeymoon, I didn't go. But they went to a different spot than me and my dad always go. And this guy, Gordon, his brother, and his son and his brother's son, the three of them went out to the spot where me and my dad used to always go. And they actually had an issue to where a grizzly attacked. It stood up on its hind legs from the story I was told. And the guy that was had the bow was walking away from the two guys that had the rifle, and it stood up on its hind legs looking at him, and he was dead center between the bear and the rifles. And had to take off running at an angle because the bears they come quick. He started running at an angle, and they ended up shooting it right behind him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and you know, if on a normal year that would have been me and my dad hunting in that area, and I don't know if I would have wanted to be in that situation. But
what do you guys carry for extra protection other than the rifle?
I carry, like me and Dad, when we're together, we just have our bows. But I bring with a shotgun with slugs, so buckshot and slugs. And you don't want to shoot one, and you know legally we can't. It has to be basically protecting your life.
You got to be a couple of gouges in where you can start.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty tough on that too. And then you got to report it, and then you got to go to the courthouse, and there's just all kinds of
right,
things.
Legal.
You got to give a story, why, you got to report that you shot it, you got to report the incident, how it happened, and you just don't want to have to go through it at all. One, for the scare part of it, and then having to go through all the work, the technicalities of it.
You don't, it's funny you mention that, because you don't really think about all that other stuff that it comes with it.
Yeah.
It's just an incident that happens in the woods, but there's so much on the back end that you should report or supposed to report.
Yep. Gordon was telling me a story of, he was sleeping once, and you just get that feeling that you're being watched or something's not right. And he said he had his hat over his eyes, and he lifted his hat up a little bit, and he saw a grizzly just kind of swinging his head back and forth, trying to smell in the air. And he just slowly reached for his gun. It was at about, I want to say he said 30 yards from him. And as he went to reach for his gun, it pegged him reaching for the gun, and it came full force. And he said he shot it at 10 feet by the time he got his gun up.
Wow, a little aggressive.
Yeah. And he said it's really rare, but yet they all have stories. I'm going, it's really rare. They all have multiple stories, all the locals up there, and they don't carry bear spray. They carry 50 caliber handguns,
Yeah. Something that might make a little more impact.
Yep.
Well, is there any last thoughts that you've got on your hunt, or any advice for somebody that's trying to get out there that you think is valuable?
Just a lot of research. Like I said, once you kill the animal, the way we were hunting, we flew in on a Sunday, and our flight out was on a Monday at 6 a.m. in the morning. So, when you're dealing with weekends, a lot of those butcher places aren't going to be open. So you really got to take that into effect a little bit too. If you don't have somebody up there that can take care of that for you, I would advise, your time back in the city being during the week, because you'll be able to get more done. When we flew out of the bush, it was Sunday and nothing's open. So if we wanted to get our meat somewhere or wanted to get it processed so we could get it shipped, we wouldn't have been able to, just because nowhere was open. Somebody would have had to make a special trip to come open their butcher shop or their meat place. So I would advise just really researching the once you shoot an animal, what to do, what next. Because there's actually, it's a lot of work after you get the animal, especially if it's one you're going to get mounted. And Delta will fly them back. The guy on our flight from Wisconsin flew back 200 pounds of meat, and I know that it was $800. It was 4 boxes. That totaled them $800 to send back with Delta, which is probably the easiest, unless you have contacts that you can kind of work and keep finding different ways. That's definitely probably the easiest way.
Sure. And you got your meat out of it, and what were you doing with your mount?
I'm gonna do a shoulder mount.
Where is that
as what's that?
Where is that gonna go?
To Josh Lynn. I'll have him ship it to me, and then I'll show everybody that I know the antlers before I take it to Josh. A lot of people are wanting to see it, so I'll probably drive around with it in my truck for a week or two.
The Stanley Cup coming back home.
Pretty much.
Rightfully so. That's pretty cool.
So I think I'll get some miles in, and then I'll get it to Artistic Taxidermy. Josh Lynn does pretty good work. So
where are you gonna put it in the house?
That's a good question. I think I'm gonna have to sell my house and build a house or something that's gonna be able to fit it.
Give it the room that it deserves.
What's that?
Give it the room that it deserves. Yeah,
because there's really, we've been trying to figure it out, and Morgan says she'll figure something out and make it work, but they're so big. And when you got 6 feet wide of antlers, which are gonna, the head's gonna stick off the wall, I would guess 4 feet. So those antlers will be 2 feet or 3 feet off the wall before they stretch out 6 feet.
Yeah, it's having, a lot of folks and non-hunters might not understand the value of having that mount in your house or on the wall. Some it doesn't make sense, but when I shot the one buck, my uncle had sent me an email on it that always sits with me. He just mentioned every time you see that deer, you'll always look at it and just be in awe, just like, did that really happen? And it's just something that makes you appreciate the animal so much more, just it being there, and just appreciate the I guess the thrill of a hunt and more why you do it, just those memories. It's pretty neat.
Yep. Each mount tells a story. There's always a story behind everything that you see, people's hunts and just things that went into it, the work and the sweat, and I mean, like the story I have of going through the woods and stuff, that mount is going to last forever, and someday when I'm old, there's going to be people that'll be asking questions still about it.
You got a heck of a story to tell to it.
Yeah, I'd probably be telling that story for a long time.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time again, like I mentioned, and doing this. I don't know if it'll work or not, if we got anything or not, but
we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, we're kind of winging it here. But it was good to chat with you and get more of the details of that experience.
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling. Yeah, fun to share. So
I'm sure we'll be in touch over the next couple of weeks here as the rut goes on.
Yeah, hopefully I get to see a picture of a big buck from you.
Ditto. That sounds like a plan.
Is your son gonna hunt? Is he bow hunting deer too?
He can't. Actually, you know what?
He's not 10.
He's not 10, and
Gotcha.
sadly, I'll admit I had a moral dilemma because so last winter he practiced to get to 30 pounds for turkey, and he got to that. And then this summer he's been practicing every day, and then it came to this fall, and I was talking like, we're gonna go out hunt and get one, and thinking that he could do it too because I got him to 30 pounds, and I wouldn't say I forgot, but I was being ignorant and not, really assessing what would be taking place. And then as the season got closer, I'm like, shoot, I'm like, I know you can do it, but you got to be 10. And we kind of a little falling out there, but I said, but we'll get a turkey tank. And as you saw, he was able to get to his grandpa.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
He can do it. I looked around. I talked with a few conservation officers in different states and trying to find maybe potential hunts that he could try to get in on, but there's nothing yet. So it's good. It's good for him to teach him a little bit of the patience and the taste is in his mouth. So he's been on. Well, he's come with on the hunts and shooting some rabbits or squirrels if he can, but we'll get there.
Awesome.
So we're trying to teach a little lesson, and I kind of messed up too of prepping him up when. It's like, we want to be legal, buddy. This is part of, sometimes laws don't make sense, but sometimes you still got to adhere to them.
Yep.
So,
he's 9?
7.
7, oh, geez. He's got a little way to go. Bummer.
So if you hear a youth hunt that's under 10, keep me posted.
I'll have to look around. Did you contact Nebraska?
I didn't. I just looked at the 5-state area. I didn't go beyond that, but I might look into it. It'd be worth it over the next couple of years until he can get there. He's ready. But I know there's also the dilemma on if 30 pounds is enough to kill the deer, which I think if you're within 20 yards, it's lethal. Anything beyond that, I would agree it might not be lethal. But if you're in the Boilermaker, it should do the trick.
And it should.
All right. Well, cool. Well, you have a good night.
Thanks, Wes.
Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon here.
Yep, sounds good. Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yep, bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. That is episode number 1 of the Outdoor Report podcast. I think we hopefully worked out some of the bugs and kinks on this round. Again, a special thanks to Jeremy Curran for playing along with us and being our first, I guess, guinea pig on trying this out. So thanks again, Jeremy. For everyone listening, this is part of the Outdoor Report. So if you don't know us at the Outdoor Report, our goal is always to inform, inspire, educate, and entertain. So if you got any ideas for the podcast, if you got folks out there that you think would be awesome to interview, they got a story to tell, keep us posted. Send us a message. Go to our Facebook page. Check that out. Get in touch with us. We're looking for cool content or cool stories out there. So if you got something out there, keep in mind. And our goal is, to try to shine the spotlight. We want to focus on others and what's happening around the state and around the area and in the Midwest here. So we hope you enjoyed at least part of the first episode that we caught. And stay tuned for the next episode. We've got, as we're getting into late October here, we've got the rut starting to kick in. Actually, I have my neighbors, Joe Hemrick and Jake Moshow. They just are coming back from an elk hunt, and it looks like they got some stories there to tell. So maybe we'll get them on here as well. Or the other thought is I had sent this podcast to Eric Osberg to proof and I guess give the final green light. And he mentioned he wants to be on the podcast. So maybe we'll bring him on. I suppose we could give him a shot. He'd probably do a heck of a lot better job of hosting it than I would. So I think that is a good idea. So Eric will be in the mix here. And we'll have many other hosts and co-hosts as well, I'm sure, down the road. One other thing, as you're listening to this right now, for most of you, it's probably on Facebook or YouTube or something on that link. I'm researching and trying to figure out how to do the iTunes thing. So that'll come sooner or later. We'll see what that'll take. So I've been working on that end of it. So if you like to stream your podcasts through the iTunes, which I do on my end, that's coming down the pipe. That's all.